The console sparked as Lieutenant Commander Taiwan. Kim struggled to maintain control of his experimental FTL scout ship. Alarms blared through the cockpit as the strange energy field pulled his craft toward the emerald planet below. Mayday, Mayday. This is Scout Ship Horizon. Systems failing. Trajectory locked to unknown planet in Sector 7G. His transmission cut off as the ship breached the atmosphere, heat shields failing. Taiwan gritted his teeth, fighting the controls until the final moment when darkness claimed him amid the screech of tearing metal. The horizon tumbled through thick clouds, leaving a trail of debris and smoke. The once proud vessel of the Earth fleet was now little more than a falling meteor. Emergency systems engaged too late, deploying partial landing protocols that only slightly slowed the inevitable impact. Tae-1 drifted in and out of consciousness. His training had prepared him for crashes, but nothing like this. The ship's AI assistant kept repeating warnings until its voice distorted and died. Something about this planet was interfering with all systems. Hold together, Taiwan muttered, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. The horizon crashed through a canopy of tall purple trees before slamming into a meadow. Metal twisted and groaned. The cockpit crumpled but held just enough to keep Taiwan from being crushed. Emergency foam deployed around him, hardening instantly to protect him from the worst of the impact. Then silence, the kind of deep silence that follows catastrophe. Tae-1 hung suspended in his crash harness, his breathing shallow. The ship's life support systems switched to emergency power, pumping oxygen and medical nanites into his bloodstream to keep him alive. Outside the wrecked ship, the local wildlife scattered. Strange six-legged creatures with iridescent fur bounded away from the smoking crash site. Birds with twin tails and no wings glided on air currents, circling the intruder cautiously. Hours passed. The ship's locator beacon tried to activate, but failed repeatedly. Earth fleet would have registered his disappearance, but they had no way to find him in uncharted space. Taiwan was on his own. As night fell on the alien world, lights appeared in the forest. Not the random glow of bioluminescent life, but organized patterns. Searchers, intelligent beings. They approached cautiously, tall figures with slender forms. Their skin glowed faintly blue in the darkness, with patterns that shifted and changed. They carried no visible weapons, but moved with purpose and discipline. Life signs detected, one said in a melodic language completely foreign to human ears. Another pressed a device against the hull of the ship, one occupant, injured but stable. The tallest one, wearing elaborate patterns that suggested authority, motioned to the others. Open it. Carefully. They worked with surprising efficiency, using tools that seemed to bend and reshape the metal of the ship rather than cut it. Within minutes, they had created an opening to the cockpit. The leader stepped forward, her eyes widening at the sight of Taiwan. "By the ancestral mothers," she whispered. Taewan's eyes fluttered. Through blurred vision, he saw faces peering down at him. Humanoid, but not human. Beautiful faces with striking features, all of them appearing female. "It's different from us," whispered one voice. "The physiology matches the ancient texts," another replied. "This is what they called male." The word rippled through the group like an electric current. Several stepped back. Others leaned closer, fascination overcoming caution. "Is that possible?" asked a younger one. "The males were purged from our world generations ago." The leader silenced them with a gesture. "This is not one of our kind. It is alien, the first contact with life beyond our world." She touched a pendant at her throat, which pulsed with light. "Inform the High Council. We have an emergency situation." They carefully extracted Taiwan from the wreckage. His body was secured on a floating platform that hummed with energy. The nanites in his bloodstream worked frantically to repair internal damage while he drifted between consciousness and darkness. As they transported him through the forest, Taiwan caught glimpses of a civilization unlike anything in human records. Structures grew from living trees, buildings and plant life merged in perfect harmony. Light came from glowing stones and living organisms rather than artificial sources. "Where will we take it?" asked one of the rescuers. "To the Central Science Facility," the leader replied. "Director Jai-yun will want to examine this creature personally." "But the laws are clear," objected another. "No male presence is permitted on Naira. It violates our most sacred covenant." The leader's markings pulsed with what might have been irritation. This is not a Nairan male. The laws never anticipated contact with other worlds. She looked down at Taduan's unconscious form. "Besides, the High Council will decide his fate, not us." They reached the edge of a vast city that seemed to shine with its own inner light. Buildings spiraled upward, many connected by graceful arches and bridges. Gardens bloomed everywhere, even on vertical surfaces. It was beautiful, advanced, and utterly alien. Tae-won felt himself being moved into a structure with walls that seemed alive, pulsing gently. The air smelled of sweet herbs and something electric. Medical devices unlike any human technology surrounded him. Before darkness claimed him again, he heard the leader speaking to someone new. "Director Jai-yun, we found it in the forest. A vessel from beyond our world." "And the occupant?" asked a new voice, cool and precise. "Male. Alien, but remarkably similar to our anatomy." "Fascinating," the new voice said. "The first male to set foot on our world in 300 years. The council will be in an uproar. Will they execute it?" There was a pause. "Not before I've had a chance to study it. This changes everything we thought we knew about life beyond Nara." Tae-won's consciousness faded as the alien healers began their work. His last thought was that he had made history, the first human to contact an advanced alien civilization. If only he could live long enough to tell the story. Tae-won awoke on a bed of soft, pulsating material. The medical chamber glowed with bioluminescent light, revealing a tall figure studying displays of his vital signs. "You're awake. Good." The alien woman had pale blue skin with faint markings that seemed to shift with her emotions. "I am head researcher Jai-yun. You are the first male to set foot on Naira in 300 cycles." She explained their society had evolved beyond male presence after a devastating war. The council had only allowed him to live because of scientific curiosity. "The High Matriarch has assigned me as your guardian. One wrong move, and they will authorize termination." Tae-won tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced him back down. His body felt strange, lighter somehow, as if the gravity here was weaker than Earth's. The air carried sweet scents he couldn't identify. "Water," he managed to say, his voice raspy. Jai-yun passed him a crystal container filled with clear liquid. "Your ship's wreckage has been moved to our research facility. The technology is interesting, different from ours." Tae-won sipped the water, which tasted slightly metallic but refreshing. He looked down at himself, noticing his flight suit had been replaced with a simple blue garment that seemed to shift and adjust to his movements. "Where exactly am I?" he asked. "You are in the Central Science Facility in Lumina, the capital city of Nara." Jai-yun's markings pulsed with a soft light as she spoke. "Your arrival has caused quite a disturbance. Many wanted you destroyed immediately." Tae-won swallowed hard. "But you didn't. Some of us saw an opportunity to learn." Her expression remained neutral, but her skin markings swirled with what might have been curiosity. "The universe has proven larger than our ancestors believed." A door slid open, revealing another Nairan. This one wore elaborate robes and had more complex patterns on her blue skin. "Is it awake?" the newcomer asked, not bothering to look directly at Tae-won. "Yes, Council Member Sunhai. He is conscious and coherent." Jai-yun replied with a slight bow. Sunhai approached slowly, her eyes now fixed on Tae-won with undisguised disgust. "The Council debates your fate even now, creature. Some wish to study your physiology, after your death, of course." Tae-won met her gaze steadily. "I come in peace. My crash was an accident." Sun He's markings flashed a bright pattern. It speaks our language. He is wearing a translation device we synthesized based on technology from his ship, Jai Yun explained. Remarkable adaptive algorithms. The council member circled the bed, examining Taiwan from all angles. 300 cycles we have lived in harmony without male influence. 300 cycles of peace, progress, and prosperity. I mean no harm, Taiwan said carefully. Your kind always says that. Sun Hai turned to Jai Yun. The High Matriarch grants you 7 days to extract whatever knowledge you can. Then we decide its fate. With that, she swept from the room. When the door closed, Taiwan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Your people really don't like males. Jai Yun's markings dimmed slightly. It is not without reason. Come, you should eat. Then I will explain. She helped him to his feet, steadying him when he swayed. The room around him was unlike any medical facility he had seen, more like a living organism than a building. The walls seemed to breathe, and light came from glowing plants rather than artificial sources. They moved to an adjoining chamber where food awaited. Fruits and vegetables in colors Taiwan had never seen before, arranged in geometric patterns. Our history is complex. Jai Yun began as Taiwan cautiously tasted a purple fruit that reminded him of a peach. Once, Nyrans lived as your species does, male and female together. But something changed in our males generations ago. She activated a display on the wall, showing images of what appeared to be Nyran males, taller, with deeper blue skin and more prominent markings. They became aggressive, violent. What began as isolated incidents became widespread. Society fractured, and a terrible war followed. Her markings pulsed with what might have been sadness. When it ended, no pure-blooded males remained. Our scientists developed a new reproductive method, and we rebuilt. Tae-1 ate slowly, processing this information. And no one questioned this. The complete elimination of half your species. Jai Yun's markings flashed. There were dissenters, yes. Some believed the males were victims, not villains. But that view fell out of favor as our society stabilized and flourished. And now I show up, throwing everything into question again. Precisely. Jai Yun studied him with renewed interest. Though you are not Nyran, your presence forces us to confront our past and our prejudices. A soft chime sounded, and Jai Yun checked a device on her wrist. The High Matriarch wishes to see you. This is unprecedented. Tae-1 set down his food. Is that good or bad? I honestly don't know. Jai Yun helped him to his feet again. She rarely involves herself directly in scientific matters. They walked through corridors that seemed to grow from the floor itself. Nyrans they passed stopped to stare, their markings flashing in patterns Taiwan couldn't interpret. Some looked fearful, others curious, a few openly hostile. They'd never seen a male before, he whispered. Only in historical records, Jai Yun replied. You are living history to them, a reminder of what was lost, or perhaps what was escaped. They entered a vast chamber where light streamed through crystal windows. At its center sat an elderly Nyran, her skin a deeper blue than the others, her markings complex and bright. High Matriarch Jin, Jai Yun said with a deep bow. I present the alien visitor. The matriarch's eyes, pale and cloudy with age, fixed on Taiwan. Come closer, star traveler. Tae-1 approached and bowed, unsure of the proper protocol. I was a child when the last males died, the matriarch said, her voice surprisingly strong. I remember their faces, their voices. She leaned forward. Tell me, do the males of your world wage war upon your females? No, Taiwan replied. On Earth, men and women live together, work together. We're different, but equal. The matriarch's markings pulsed slowly. Interesting. Perhaps it was only our males who carried the seeds of violence. She gestured to Jai Yun. Study him well, researcher. There may be more to learn than simply alien technology. As they left the chamber, Taiwan felt the weight of history, both Myren and human, on his shoulders. He was more than just a crashed pilot now. He was a living challenge to everything these people believed about gender and society. 7 days, Jai Yun reminded him as they returned to the medical chamber. We have 7 days to prove your value to our world. Taiwan nodded. Then let's not waste any time. Days turned to weeks as Taiwan learned about Myren society. Their technology merged biology and engineering in ways Earth scientists had only dreamed of. Your ship's propulsion system is fascinating, Jai Yun admitted as they examined the wreckage. We never considered using quantum folding this way. Meanwhile, Taiwan discovered their reproduction method, a complex ritual involving genetic material exchange between females. Not everyone welcomed his presence. Security Chief Hannah watched him with unconcealed hostility. He represents everything we left behind: violence, domination, chaos. Jai Yun surprised herself by defending him. Perhaps we need to re-examine our history rather than fear it. The 7 days granted by the High Matriarch had stretched into 30. Taiwan's knowledge of space travel and mechanical engineering had proven valuable enough that his execution was postponed, indefinitely, but with conditions. He could not leave the science facility without an escort, and he wore a tracker embedded in his new clothes. Today, Jai Yun had brought him to see the Great Gardens, a vast complex where food for the entire city was grown in spiraling towers of plant life. The plants respond to sound patterns, Jai Yun explained as she activated a small device. A soft melody played, and the nearest plants turned their leaves toward them, opening flowers that had been closed moments before. We sing to them, a young Myren gardener added, her markings bright with pride. Each plant has its own song. Taiwan watched in amazement as she demonstrated, her voice rising in notes that made a tall, twisted plant unfurl new shoots. On Earth, we talk to plants too, but they don't answer back so clearly. The gardener smiled, the first genuine smile Taiwan had received from any Myren, besides Jai Yun. Would you like to try? Before he could answer, a harsh voice cut through the peaceful garden. What is it doing here? This area produces food for our people. Security Chief Hannah strode toward them, her tall form imposing in dark armor that seemed to grow from her skin. Her markings pulsed with angry red patterns. The High Matriarch approved this educational tour, Jai Yun said calmly, though her own markings flickered with tension. Did she approve letting it touch our food sources? Hannah demanded, glaring at Taiwan. Who knows what contamination it might carry? Taiwan stepped back, raising his hands. I was just observing. Your agricultural methods are impressive. Hannah's hand moved to the weapon at her side, a living thing that seemed bonded to her armor. It should be confined to the research facility, Jai Yun. Your fascination with this creature compromises your judgment. My judgment is sound, Jai Yun replied, stepping between them. Taiwan has shared valuable knowledge about star navigation and engine design. The Council has recognized his contribution. The Council is blinded by curiosity, Hannah snapped. Have you forgotten our history? Males brought our world to the brink of destruction once before. The young gardener backed away, her markings dimmed with fear. Other Nyrans in the garden stopped their work to watch the confrontation. Taiwan is not Nyran, Jai Yun said firmly, and he has shown no aggression since his arrival. Hannah's markings flashed brightly. Not yet. An uncomfortable silence fell. Taiwan felt the weight of ancient fears directed at him. Fears he could neither address nor dismiss because they weren't really about him at all. Perhaps we should return to the facility, he suggested quietly to Jai Yun. She shook her head. No, you have every right to be here, under my supervision. She turned back to Hannah. If you have concerns, file them with the Council. Until then, we will continue our approved activities. Hannah stepped closer, lowering her voice. I have filed concerns. Many of us have. The longer it stays, the more it influences you and others. Already you defend it like a bonded companion. Jia Yun's markings flashed with surprise, then something Ta Wan couldn't interpret. My interest is scientific, nothing more. Is it? Hannah looked between them. Be careful, Jia Yun. Males are skilled at manipulation. With a final glare at Ta Wan, she strode away. When she was gone, Ta Wan released a breath. She really doesn't like me. She lost family in the final conflicts, the young gardener said softly, then looked embarrassed for speaking. Many did. Jia Yun nodded. Hannah's lineage traces to the warrior castes. They suffered tremendously when the males turned violent. They continued through the garden in a more subdued mood. The young gardener, whose name was Su Jin, gradually overcame her shyness and showed Ta Wan how they had engineered plants to grow food in specific shapes and flavors. Later, they visited the education center where young Nairans learned through direct neural connections to living data systems. The knowledge becomes part of them, Jia Yun explained, as they watched children sitting in circles, their hands touching glowing orbs. Not just memorized, but experienced. Tai Wan thought of Earth's struggling education systems. This could revolutionize learning on my world. Perhaps one day we can share such technologies, Jia Yun said, her markings brightening. If the council ever agrees to formal relations with your people. That evening, they sat in Jia Yun's research lab, reviewing data from Taiwan's partially repaired ship computer. The lab walls glowed softly, responding to Jia Yun's presence. Your people rely so heavily on metal and artificial materials, she observed. Why not cultivate living systems? We haven't figured out how to make biological systems as reliable as mechanical ones, Ta Wan admitted, though we're trying. Jia Yun's markings pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps that's the exchange we need. Your mechanical ingenuity for our biological mastery. Before Ta Wan could respond, an alert sounded. A message appeared on Jia Yun's living display. The council has reached a decision, she said, her voice carefully neutral but her markings betraying anxiety. They want to see us immediately. The council chamber was filled with members, all watching as Ta Wan and Jia Yun entered. The High Matriarch sat at the center, flanked by Sun Hai and, to Ta Wan's dismay, Hannah. Lieutenant Commander Kim, the Matriarch began, using his Earth title for the first time. We have deliberated on your continued presence here. Ta Wan stood straight, trying to project calm though his heart raced. Some argue you pose a fundamental threat to our way of life, she continued. Others see potential benefits from continued exchange of knowledge. Hannah's markings pulsed with barely contained anger. Sun Hai looked smug. After much debate, we have decided to permit a formal cultural exchange program. The matriarch's words sent ripples of reaction through the chamber, under strict conditions and with continuous evaluation. Jia Yun's markings flashed with surprise and relief. However, the matriarch continued, there is one test we require first. She gestured, and an attendant brought forward a small, pulsing device. This will scan your thought patterns and emotional responses to various scenarios. We must be certain your presence poses no threat. Ta Wan glanced at Jia Yun, who nodded slightly. I have nothing to hide, he said. As the device was placed on his temples, Ta Wan wondered what they would find, and whether his alien mind would even register properly on their technology. Either way, it seemed his stay on Naira was about to become official. For better or worse, the cultural exchange had truly begun. In the restricted archive chamber, Ta Wan stared at the ancient mural. There were males here before. Jia Yun nodded grimly. The histories claim our male population became aggressive, uncontrollable. But these records suggest genetic manipulation by an outside force. Before they could investigate further, alarms sounded. Security forces, led by Hannah, surrounded them. The male has accessed forbidden knowledge, Hannah announced. But his genetic material will serve Naira. We will create a new male population, one we can control. Jia Yun grabbed Ta Wan's hand. Run. The restricted archive was located deep beneath the central science facility. Few Nyrans ever ventured here, where the painful truths of their past were sealed away from public knowledge. Jai Yun had broken numerous laws bringing Taiwan to this place, but after 3 months on Nyara, she trusted him enough to risk it. The ancient mural stretched across an entire wall, its colors still vibrant after centuries. It showed Nyaran males and females living together in harmony. But most disturbing was the upper section, which depicted strange vessels in the sky and alien beings, not Nyaran, not human, performing procedures on captured Nyaran males. This contradicts everything in our official history, Jai Yun whispered as they studied the images. The males didn't naturally become violent. Something was done to them. Tae-Won traced the unfamiliar symbols beneath the mural. Can you read this? It's ancient script. It says, "The stars brought doom. The visitors altered our brothers." Madness followed. Jai Yun's markings pulsed with distress. There's more in these data crystals. She inserted one into a reader. Images flickered to life. Laboratory scenes showing Nyaran males strapped to tables, alien devices attached to their heads. The males' markings flashed in patterns of extreme distress. "They were experimenting on your people," Taiwan said, horrified. "Genetic modification, by the look of it." Jai Yun nodded, her markings dim with sadness. "Not random violence, then. Our males were victims of some outside interference." Taiwan thought of humanity's fears about alien contact. But why? What would anyone gain from turning half your population violent? Before Jai Yun could answer, a shrill alarm cut through the silence. Red lights pulsed along the walls. They had triggered some ancient security system, or worse, been discovered. "We need to leave," Jai Yun said urgently, gathering the data crystals. "If we're caught here." The main door slid open. Security Chief Hannah stood there, flanked by 6 guards in full battle armor. Their weapons were drawn, the living tissue of their guns pulsing with stored energy. "I knew you would betray us eventually," Hannah said, her markings flashing with triumph. "Breaking into the forbidden archives, accessing classified historical records." "Hannah, listen." Jai Yun stepped forward. "The history we've been taught is wrong. Our males were victims, not aggressors." "Silence," Hannah barked. "Your obsession with this alien has clouded your judgment, Jai Yun. I've been monitoring your research, your private conversations, your growing attachment." Tae-Won looked between them. "This isn't about me or Jai Yun. It's about the truth of what happened to your people." Hannah's laugh was cold. "Truth. The only truth that matters is survival. Our society thrived after purging the male influence." She stepped closer, eyes gleaming. "But I must thank you, alien. Your arrival has provided an unexpected opportunity." She gestured, and 2 guards moved forward with a strange device. "The High Council still debates your fate, but a select group of us have seen your true potential. Your genetic material, combined with our advanced bioengineering." Understanding dawned on Taiwan. "You want to create hybrids." "Better." Hannah smiled, her markings pulsing with dark purpose. "A new generation of males, part Nyaran, part human, fully under our control. The perfect soldiers." Jai Yun's markings flashed with horror. "You can't. The Council would never approve such a violation. The Council doesn't need to know until the work is complete." Hannah motioned to her guards. "Secure the alien. Take the researcher to containment until we decide her fate." As guards moved toward them, Jai Yun's hand found Taiwan's. Her grip was firm, desperate. "Run," she whispered, then slammed her other hand onto a panel on the wall. The lights failed instantly, plunging the archive into darkness. Only the Nyaran's natural bioluminescence provided any light, marking them clearly while hiding Taiwan. He didn't hesitate. Still holding Jai Yun's hand, he dove between 2 confused guards, pulling her with him. His months on Nara had acclimated him to the lower gravity, giving him speed and agility the guards weren't expecting from an alien. Stop them. Hannah's voice rang out. A weapon discharged, sending a pulse of energy over their heads. Jai-yun pulled Ta-wan toward a small service door half hidden behind storage units. This way, it leads to the old maintenance tunnels. They squeezed through the narrow opening just as the lights flickered back on. Hannah's shouts echoed behind them as they descended a spiral ramp into darkness. Jai-yun's markings provided just enough light to see by. I don't understand, Ta-wan gasped as they ran. Hannah is security chief. She answers to the High Matriarch. How can she? Not all of the council supports your presence, Jai-yun replied, guiding him through a junction of narrow tunnels. Some fear change more than others. Some see opportunity in it. They emerged into a larger passage with glowing moss on the walls. Ancient machinery hummed in the darkness. These tunnels haven't been used in generations, Jai-yun explained, pausing to catch her breath. They connect to the old city from before the purge. Ta-wan leaned against the wall, mind racing. So what now? We can't stay down here forever. We need to reach the High Matriarch directly. Jai-yun's markings pulsed with determination, with evidence of both the historical manipulation and Hannah's conspiracy. A distant sound of footsteps echoed through the tunnels. The guards were following. We need to keep moving, Ta-wan urged. Jai-yun nodded, but her expression was troubled. There's something else you should know. The aliens who manipulated our males. The images match descriptions in our oldest legends of beings called the Shapers. They were said to visit many worlds, altering species to suit their purposes. Like some kind of genetic farmers. Ta-wan asked as they hurried deeper into the tunnel system. Yes, and if the legends are true, they didn't just visit Naira. Jai-yun's markings pulsed with foreboding. They visited dozens of worlds, including, possibly, yours. The implication hit Ta-wan like a physical blow. Could Earth's long history of conflict have similar origins? Was the struggle between men and women across human history partly engineered by outside forces? Before he could process this disturbing thought, a new alarm sounded, different from the archive alarm, more urgent. That's the city-wide emergency signal, Jai-yun said, her markings flashing with fear. Hannah must have declared you a threat to all Naira, which means every security force in the city will be looking for us, Ta-wan concluded grimly. They continued through the darkness, fugitives from a conspiracy that reached back centuries before either of them was born, carrying a truth that could change two worlds forever. The High Council chamber fell silent as the evidence played on the hovering display. The genetic alterations matched those found on 12 other worlds, Ta-wan explained. Someone has been experimenting with species across this sector. High Matriarchman nodded solemnly. For centuries, we blamed an entire gender for the actions of those who were victims themselves. After Hannah's conspiracy was exposed, the Council voted to establish contact with the Galactic Alliance. Ta-wan would serve as their first ambassador. As he prepared the communication relay, Jai-yun joined him on the observation deck. Our society will face many changes, she said, her markings glowing with uncertainty and hope. Ta-wan smiled. Sometimes change begins with a crash landing. He composed his first message to Galactic Reddit. TIFU by crash landing on a planet that banned men and accidentally changed their entire civilization. 3 days had passed since their desperate flight through the ancient tunnels. 3 days of hiding, gathering allies, and preparing their case. Now Ta-wan stood before the full High Council, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. On the large display behind him, images from the restricted archives played alongside data recovered from his ship's damaged computers. The connection was undeniable. The same genetic manipulation signatures, the same alien technology. The beings you call the Shapers visited Earth too, thousands of years ago, Ta-wan explained. We found evidence in our oldest ruins but dismissed it as myth. The patterns in our DNA tell a different story. Council member Sunhai leaned forward, her markings pulsing with skepticism. You expect us to believe that all conflict between genders across multiple worlds was engineered by some ancient aliens. Not all conflict, Jai-Yun interjected. She stood beside Tadawon, her position as head researcher giving her the right to speak. But the most extreme patterns, yes. The Shapers enhanced natural tensions, amplified them through targeted genetic modifications. The High Matriarch raised her hand for silence as murmurs spread through the chamber. What of Security Chief Hana? Bring her forward. Guards led Hana into the center of the room. Her markings were dim, her posture defiant despite the restraints on her wrists. You violated our most sacred laws, the matriarch said, plotting to create a controlled male population using alien DNA without council approval. Hana lifted her chin. I acted to protect Naira, to give us strength against whatever lurks beyond our world. By becoming like the Shapers, Ta-Wan asked quietly, by manipulating life to serve your purpose. Hana's markings flashed with anger. You know nothing of our suffering. I know more than you think, Ta-Wan replied. My world has its own history of gender conflict. But we found a better way forward, together. You can too. The matriarch considered this, her ancient eyes moving between Ta-Wan, Jai-Yun, and Hana. The evidence is compelling. The truth of our past has been hidden too long. She turned to the council. We must vote. The voting process was unlike anything on Earth. Each council member's markings pulsed in patterns representing their decision, creating a living display of consensus forming in real time. Jai-Yun quietly explained the meanings to Ta-Wan as they watched. They're voting to establish contact with your galactic alliance, she whispered, and to begin research into restoring our male genetic lines, naturally, without manipulation. When the voting finished, the matriarch's markings glowed brightly. It is decided. We will emerge from our isolation. Lieutenant Commander Kim will serve as our first ambassador to the wider galaxy. Hana's face fell as guards led her away. Not for execution. Nairan justice focused on rehabilitation rather than punishment, but for a deep psychological evaluation and treatment. Days later, Ta-Wan stood on the observation deck of the Central Science Facility. Technicians had incorporated parts of his damaged ship into a new communication array powerful enough to reach Earth's deep space beacons. Will your people respond well to contact with us? Jai-Yun asked, joining him as he calibrated the final settings. Verilyn texts. They came much later, through the same spatial corridor. They found humans had already visited Varala and left descendants, but they too became stranded. June stood up, feeling a new certainty. We need to check the long-range sensors. If the prophecy is correct, the wormhole should be reforming. In the command center, they directed the station's sensors toward the coordinates June somehow knew with perfect clarity. At first, there was nothing unusual. Then, a small anomaly appeared on the screen. What is that? Lieutenant Park asked. Spatial distortion, the science officer replied. Very faint, but growing. June watched the readings with a sense of déjà vu. It's happening. The passage is reopening. Word spread quickly through the station. Within hours, both human and Verilyn officials had gathered in the command center. Ambassador Ta looked skeptical. You're suggesting that humans visited Varala thousands of years ago. That's impossible. Not according to their historical records, Jum said, gesturing to Nari and Kito. And not according to the genetic memory I've accessed. Kito stepped forward. Our most ancient texts speak of this moment, the return of the bridge between worlds. The science officer interrupted. The anomaly is expanding rapidly. It's forming a stable wormhole structure. On the main view screen, they watched as space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a swirling vortex of light. All ships in the area have been warned away, Lieutenant Park reported. No unusual radiation detected. June turned to Neri. You feared me because you knew what my return to Verilyn space meant. She nodded. My ancestral memory showed me both possibilities, unity or destruction. The texts weren't clear which would come to pass when the marked one returned and the bridge reopened. And now we will find out. She gestured to the observation deck. Would you join me to witness it? Together, they stood before the vast window of the observation deck. The wormhole had stabilized, a shimmering portal against the backdrop of stars. Scans showed it connected directly to Earth's solar system, a passage that should have been physically impossible. What happens now? June asked quietly. According to the prophecy, the bridge opens the way for the great change. Nari's feathers rippled with emotion, a joining of paths that were separated long ago. Your ancestor feared this moment, Jun said, understanding now. She saw the reopening as a potential threat. Yes, but she also saw hope. Nari turned to face him. The genetic memory contains both warnings and promises. The outcome depends on what comes through the passage. As if in response to her words, the wormhole pulsed. The station's sensors detected something emerging from its center. A ship, Lieutenant Park's voice announced over the comm. Unknown configuration. It's broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The message played throughout the station, a simple greeting in both ancient Verulan and an archaic form of Earth language that predated any known record. They're from both worlds, Jun realized, a profound understanding washing over him. Not just human, not just Verulan. They're what we could become together. The ship approached slowly, its design unlike anything built by modern humans or Verulans. It was the culmination of both civilizations' potential, from a timeline that might now become possible. The great change, Nari whispered. Not an ending, but a beginning. As the mysterious vessel drew closer to the station, Jun felt a strange sensation, as if pieces of a puzzle long scattered across time and space were finally coming together. His genetic memory, Nari's ancestral warnings, the prophecy of the Skywalkers, all of it had led to this moment. They're requesting permission to dock, came the announcement. Jun looked at Nari, seeing in her three eyes the same mixture of fear and hope he felt himself. Whatever came next would change both their species forever. Let them come, he said. It's time we met our future. Retriclad can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.